Hola, hola. Welcome to Entre Tías y Amiguis, the podcast where we dive into the wild roller coaster ride of adulting. I'm your host, Adri, a queer Salvadorian native, a first-gen trailblazer, and licensed psychotherapist, here to share wisdom, stories, and real talk with my tías and amiguis to inspire and uplift our community. I want to remind you that while I am a licensed psychotherapist, this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Now let's dive into today's conversation and explore the journey of adulting together. Grab your cafecito, get comfy, and let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Entre Tías y Amiguis. And today we have one of our first tíos joining us, which I'm so excited about. Entre Tías y Amiguis, right? Maybe the assumption is that this is para mujeres, just for women. But the reality is that me, as a person, I interact with lots of people that they give me like tia vibes. They give me energy. They like remind me that I'm in the right path. My amiguis, they're all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And so though maybe today feels a little bit different, we got some tío energy that I think we're really going to enjoy. And so with that, I'm so happy to have Armando Salud with us here, aka my birthday buddy. So a fun fact, we share the same birthday, so aquí nos van a ver vibrando, right? I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a long time coming. We've known each other for almost like 15 plus years. Absolutely. I've seen you grow. I've seen you become like este señor que anda ahí trabajando, leading in the world. And so I'm so happy to have you in community today. So why don't you introduce yourself, your origin story, who are you, what identities are important for us to keep in mind as we listen to this conversation?
First and foremost, it is an honor to be the first tío, el primero. Leaving, hopefully setting up the stage and expectations.
Absolutely.
Como dijo Adri, Armando Salud-Ambriz, truly, every space that I carry and every time that I get to speak, my name is Armando Salud-Ambriz, not Armando. It's very specific. Armando. Why? Because I'm a proud immigrant. And I want to make sure that everyone shares their pride of who they are, right? Yeah. So proud immigrant, first gen, anything and everything, first gen professional, first gen. I mean, I was the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree, the first in my family to get a master's degree. I break barriers because it's possible. So I immigrated from mi ranchito de Tecacho, Michoacán, Mexico at the age of 9 months old and came to Colusa County, California. And that's where my story started.
Colusa.
In Colusa.
What was that growing up in a small town?
You know, I have to tell you, it was a bubble because it's a farming community and it's filled with immigrants or, immigrants that have then turned citizen. At that time, not so much, but it was a farming close community. And so, yes, we heard about the migras in that time, but we knew we were going to be safe, at least in our space. And then I got exposed to the bigger world when I came to Sac State and it was like, whoa. I was in a bubble. And so for that, I'm thankful. But at the same time, I think that's where we kind of miss as children growing up in these spaces, because we're ignorant into, not by choice or not by what we want. We're ignorant to what's really happening out there.
Information gap.
And we didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have anything. So
what you know is what you know.
What you know is what you know.
So coming from a small town with a sense of security and then coming to Sacramento, which by technicality is not a huge city, but when you come from a small town, that must have been a big shock. So can you tell us a little bit about your trajectory career-wise? So you grew up in Colusa, you grew up in this tight-knit community, you come to Sac State, opening barriers, being first gen. Tell us about that part of the story.
I'll start off with context of, first and foremost, I think as an immigrant, but two, as a child of immigrants, that my parents have no more than a third grade generation, education background. So when they brought me to the United States for a better chance of life, all they knew or all they thought of the American dream was a trabajar en el field, a trabajar, in the orchards, go to high school, get your high school diploma, come back to work in the field, get a home and get married and you're successful. And so, I don't want to send your secrets out about the podcast, but when you ask, hey, give me some reference as to what you think you want your title to be of your, the session or the podcast, I told you, Delulu, but determined. And it's because in every space I think I'm Delulu, and my friends will know who you are, who call me Delulu. But it's delusional does not mean that you can't reach it. But for me, it was like, that's what my parents' goals were for me. And that's all I knew I should have done, right? But then there was, you would see TV and you would see what's going on, and I would say, man, how did that person get to there? How did that person even become a meteorologist? Fun fact for those people who know me, I wanted to be a meteorologist.
Wow.
At some point in my young career. But it was like, how to get there, right?
Yeah.
So that was the dilulu but determined. I wish I could get there, but I don't know how, at least in that space. I say that context to, again, I'm not saying any ill will about my family because they gave me what they could.
Yes.
And that's knowledge, and in every space of the way. I did not do well in school, in high school, because she's got degrees and I just needed to get a diploma, and then I would go work with my dad. And then it was my high school counselor and my English teacher who, in my junior year of high school, said, Armando, what are these grades? You're better than this. And you're better than this, and we know why, and we know because of what you put out there. You're involved in all these organizations. I always have been involved in all these organizations, and you produce amazing work. Why are you doing this? Why are you not applying? Well, first and foremost, I was still an immigrant. In that time, they weren't offering Cal Grants and Pell Grants, I believe, at that time for permanent residents. So I was like, okay, if I'm applying to these schools, thanks to my counselor support, de todos modos, how am I going to pay? Yeah. So, dilulu but determined, I applied to San Diego State because I'd never been to a beach in my life at the age of 17, 18 years old. And I said, that's a dream.
Yeah.
I got conditionally accepted, but then I also got conditionally accepted at Sac State. But they said without financial support. And I was like, I am not going to live my best life in San Diego at the expense of my family when we have Sac State. So that's how I got to Sacramento State, the big city, which is huge, as you mentioned. Coming from a small town, oh man, this is huge change.
Yeah. I remember when I first saw these, because I have been asking the guests, like, how do you want to call this, right? And so this dilulu by determined, I think, I don't know, because we're birthday buddies, but like I relate to that because I think, and many probably of you in the audience are watching, listening to this interview, are going to say, yeah, like me too, right? And there is a power in being able to say, I don't know I'm going to get there, but I know that I want to, and I'm going to figure it out. Curiosity, determination, finding purpose. But at the same time, I think you're naming something about that is really hard for first gen, especially as a therapist that specializes in working with a lot of first gens, talking about our parents and naming the gaps that we have from the family that we come from, right? And not because they didn't try, not because they didn't want to, but la sincera verdad, no saber. Right? And then we end up doing all these amazing things that seem delulu, but you see the average, white person doing these things that for us seem like so unattainable and so far away. And so there can be like this level of grief, this level of discouragement, this level of like, is this okay to do? Like permission, right? And so to be delusional, to believe enough in that, you have to give yourself the permission to say, I'm going to give it a try and I'm going to see how I go about it. But at the same time, there is a lot of grief and there is I think a lot of conflict internally of like, what does it mean to leave behind and choose something that nobody else has chosen before me? And that's really powerful, what you're naming. So los que le dicen delulu, this is the energy that we need, because for many of us as immigrants, as children of immigrants, it is going to feel so far away and so far-fetched because we haven't seen the people that can accomplish it, right? And now we get to be here and say like, hey, you can too.
Yes, you can.
But when we met at Sac State, we were having that conversation before, our networks were very small. We had a lot of friends. We knew a lot of people, but we were all kind of elbow to elbow, right? We were not in a position, at least I remember, and I'm about like a few years older than you. And so I remember when I graduated being like, all right, I guess it's just me. Yeah. And los que vienen detrás, they're going to come here. But for now, it's just me. And like, I guess I'm just going to do it. And I guess this is how I go about it. And I guess, right. So we are in a position, and part of starting this podcast is that now I believe that we have a responsibility to show up for the next generation because we didn't have it. we didn't have it. And so all of this kind of little parts that you're sharing is just making me think about this inner strength that you've had to show through the years to keep yourself encouraged. How did you connect to that inner strength? Like, what do you think has been, if it could be like a formula that others could repeat? Was it a mantra? Was it a people around you? Because I think community matters too, right? So how do you think you were able to access that ganas, that resilience, that I'm going to figure it out, even in those moments where you didn't know what you were doing?
Yeah, no, that's a powerful question. I think most importantly, resilience is everything, right? You come with nothing and you have to build it yourself. And I think that was how I navigated life and how I still do it now. I mean, I'm in spaces where I don't have anyone that sometimes have been through them, right? So I have to navigate and create the knowledge of how to navigate these spaces because I have no one else to teach me how to. But I think from that resilience is finding your community that believes in you, believes in your passion, and then wants to see you succeed. And it started when I started working at the Secretary of State's office, April 1st, 2009. I'll never forget. It was, again, coming back from living and working in the fields with my parents in Colusa County to, oh, shoot, I got an offer with a state agency. This is huge. I'm going into territory, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
But it was when people believe in you that they say, let me help you get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you do that, it creates this motivation of, I can do it. Of, me dicen que no, but yes, I can. And I think that's been my mantra, right? It's just keep going and pushing yourself. Gonna sidetrack a little bit. I finished my bachelor's degree in criminal justice at Sac State in 2014. I always told myself, I want to go back to school, but then I said, no, pa qué? Bachelor's is all you need to be successful, quote unquote, at the time, right?
Which was
a
big deal for us at those times.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
And so then fast forward, just last year in 2024, I graduated with a master's in public administration through a law school, and I was selected as a class speaker. And I say that not to brag. I say that to show up for people.
Yeah.
To say if this immigrant that didn't have a future or that didn't see himself having a future, to become the spokesperson for my class, to share my story because it's so impactful. I do that because you can do it too. I really do. And I mean that. I feel like sometimes we as people of color, as any sort of minority group, we place barriers on ourselves.
Internalized systemic oppression. Absolutely.
We do it to ourselves. But when we start getting, como dicen, have you heard of the term, your board of directors?
No, say more.
So I've learned about having this board of directors, and it's almost like having your best friends, the group that when you're going through something or you're making a life decision, you go to ask for advice. But it's important to have board of directors that are your yes people, but also your real people. Like, mira, Armando, this is what you think you're doing. This is what you want to do, but this is going to be the outcome. And it's not going to be what you want to hear. I'm giving it to you right. And so when you have that board of directors, when you have a community that supports you, it's hard to lose the want to keep going. And to then come back, as you mentioned earlier, and say, I'm not doing it for me. Now I'm in this space, I'm not doing it for me. When I walk into this space, I recognize that it's not a privilege, it's a responsibility. Because when I walk into this space in this room, when I'm either the youngest, the only Latino, whatever the case is, I'm bringing my parents with me. I'm bringing my community with me. I'm bringing, the people that don't believe they have a future in any space. Yeah. And that's why it's a responsibility, not a privilege.
I always love using the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And what you're talking about is that in our community, Latinos, right? We are a collectivistic culture. We have a lot of collectivistic values of lo que hago yo es para no solamente para mí, pero para todos, right? And that can also create a tremendous amount of pressure of being able to navigate the both end, right? Because there are so many ways that our lives look so different than the families that we come from. There are pressures navigating de aquí, de allá, right? Because sometimes it's like, ni de aquí, ni de allá. No, but actually for us, it's both. It's like de aquí, we want to have these individualistic lives where we're responsible for ourselves, where we're showing up for ourselves. But you're right. There is this level of collectivism that everywhere that we go, we are going to be bringing people along, right? When you go up can you look around and see who you can pull up with you, right? It is a huge responsibility. And then that, like, what comes to mind is like sometimes as first gens, though, we've come to believe that doing it ourselves, not asking for help, pretending that we're fine, or ignoring the areas that are not doing so well, you know, because I think, and I've talked about this in other episodes about, I finally, at 42, I am comfortable talking about when I got kicked out of Sac State when I was 19. It was the most shameful experience that I had because I was an engineering major. I was not meant to be an engineering major. It was so quiet. It was like I could do the material, but socially, personality-wise, mentally, it was not satisfying, right? But there's all this shame that we carry because we feel so responsible for everybody.
It is true. And it's hard. It's hard. I can tell you most recently, probably have gone through one of the hardest moments in my life, right? And it was hard. And I call it that because I didn't want to let my community down. I didn't want to let my board of directors down, my family, right? And it was like, I can't tell them that I'm going to leave my job, right? Because are they going to be disappointed? Am I going to disappoint a group? Am I going to let down a group? And it's like, no. When you lead with integrity and humility and not with ego, you have what they call walk-away power. And it's like, you walk away because something else is better for you or because you need it for your own health. Mental health is important. Mental health is important. June just passed, but I really want to focus on that. And it was hard. And I did not tell my family what was happening up until I was like, let's just have a conversation. And so it might sound like I'm contradicting myself because, yes, I do have that community. But in that moment, I did practice that culture that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, because that is part of also trying to figure it out, right? We're so proud of you. And, you know, for the folks that don't know you, you are a person that from the social, right, distance, unless you're like in close proximity, there's this assumption that like, look at you doing all these fun things, being highlighted, being put in front of all these things. Of course, it's exciting, but like there is a level of exhaustion that you also are allowed to have as you're living your beautiful life. But that can be a conundrum. How do I tell people that this beautiful life that I live also sucks sometimes? Or that the people that I have around me are not the right people that are going to support me and push me through to the next level. Absolutely. Or that they're causing barriers for me because what we see is the shiny title, the fun trips, the sending on a mic, getting an award, right? And while those things are beautiful, sometimes even within ourselves, that success, we try to protect it so much because it took so much work to get there that I can see how falling back into, you know, no solo hago yo solita, like I'm just going to take care of it on my own. I'm not going to tell anybody. I don't know if I can trust that y'all understand where I'm coming from, right? So it makes sense. I think I relate to that. You know, I think that there are moments where it's like, I remember, no, I do still have a little anxiety about things. I'm still afraid about things, even though majority of the time those things don't come up. Here and there, these beliefs silent, right? And so despite knowing the power of your community, how interesting to be able to name also that falling back into those patterns of it's just me with my thoughts and my decision making actually can show up even when you understand the power of community.
You know, I want to mention something that you hit because you have hit a really good point. Social media, si no fuera because I purposefully post for motivations, I think I would remove my social media because it hace más daño que no. Right. And it's for what you mentioned. Everyone sees the awards, the recognitions, my successes, everything I'm doing for the community, which is great. But they don't see the hardships, the hard days, the struggles of when people are putting you down, because unfortunately, Latinos have this crab effect. Yeah. They see a Latino and they try to pull him back down because you cannot be more successful than I am. And that's horrible mentality. Yeah. And that's why I think I'm so proud of where I am today because I'm not part of that culture.
Yeah. Like, well, it is systemic, right? Because internalized oppression tells us that you're not good enough to succeed. So when you see somebody outside, it's just like, no, but everybody told us no, you got to come back. humble yourself. You even said it earlier, and I meant to like kind of tap into that. We are allowed to brag. We are allowed to say, I work hella hard for this shit, right? Like we are allowed, but at the same time, I know that there is this like part of just like, no te la creas, que no se te sube la cabeza, right? Like don't let it get to your head and stuff like that. And so we are living actually in a world full of contradictions all the time. I think that's actually what also the episode is kind of leading us to in the conversation about the amount of contradictions that you have to face as a successful man who is doing community heart-led work, who's also still a human, who needs a break and needs to not represent nobody but themselves. I'm trying to say is that in these contradictions, a lot of it, the job for us is to find a balance that honors the values of where you come from and the things that you want to do for community, but we also can't forget about ourselves. We can't, because ultimately this crab mentality that you're talking about is systemic. And if we don't learn how to break it, we run the risk of passing it down to the next person. Yep. And we want to be very clear that we not only deserve to brag, but we also deserve to brag about our friends, about our people.
That's huge.
And sometimes we have bad days, and sometimes we're low, and sometimes we're not going to be shining, and that too is allowed. But it can be really hard to hold the both ends.
If you can. And I think you said it really well earlier when you mentioned about how, you know me, yo soy un ambiente. Como dicen, a la orden pa'l desorden. Like, I'm ready to have a good time. I'm ready to create a fun space. Like, you call me, I'm pretty sure I'm down. Ya como estoy el tío de 30, 35, ya como que ya, maybe only Saturday, porque ya it's a little harder. But yeah, it's about being human. Yeah. And how you don't know how many times I've been hesitant to post my successes because of what you just said.
Es que nadie quiere ver cara bonita en cuerpo ajeno, whatever. Yeah. Like, we even have sayings for that, which is so terrible because this is so common that we have, unfortunately, because scarcity. We've all experienced poverty. We've all experienced fear, right? Being part of being an immigrant, part of our story is also this like keeping quiet and insecurity. Am I going to be okay? And so there is all these systemic ways and that we've been brainwashed to continue to enact these things that actually harm us.
Yeah.
Pulling people down, it is not going to make you feel better. Not celebrating someone is not going to celebrate you more. Two things can be true at the same time. That person can have their success and you may want it and don't have it. And it doesn't mean that you're a terrible person or that you're never going to succeed. It just means maybe that your road looks different, right? But because, again, I think part of coming back to the beginning, when we don't have an example of where we're going, there also could be like some hesitation or nervios. I'm like, am I gonna have to work this hard? Am I gonna have to work as hard as Armando is working to be successful? Dang, right? Like that in itself can be pressure. So again, with the contradictions, what a tough and beautiful place to be in, where you're like, I don't want to celebrate myself too much, but I should because of the same thing.
I love it.
Oh my goodness. Well, when one of the things that we talked about is you being the youngest, right? And a lot of the spaces. How has ageism, because especially in politics or like in public service, the work that you work in, a lot of the times there is ages sort of, the older you are, the more you know. Tú que sabes, you're young. That also comes from like our family of origin at times. You're just like, we listen, we don't interrupt and things like that. How has it been for you to build a career where you found yourself so many times being the youngest? Because I think that also could be discouraging for people to speak up, to stand up, to do and follow their heart because they're afraid that they're not there yet. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. You're not ready, right? What has that journey been like for you?
It's been really tough. I most recently experienced ageism, but I'll start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because, I think, again, going to resilience, I've always appeared older than I have been because I needed to, right? I needed to care for her. Me and my sister alone would make, we would cook food. I would help make her hair to go to school. We as immigrants grow up faster because of the culture that we live in, because our parents have to go.
La necesidad.
They have to go work. sino que vamos a comer, ¿qué nos van a poner para la ropa? ¿Qué techo nos van a poner arriba? Like, and so I think we mature, not we grow, we mature, right? And so because of my maturity, I think I've been able to kind of break some molds, but no, it's not easy. It's not easy to be a young, successful person who's really wanting to put in the work and get to these places. In every space that I've been in, both in career and in the political world, ageism hasn't been apparent. I remember, I won't say the location, but I had just started as entry level and I was going for a senior level within a year. And those around me that also applied that were more senior than me and that have been there longer were so upset that the department head chose me as a senior, not them. Because I have been here longer means I deserve that. No, that's not how the world should work. That is why, and no shame to government agencies, but that's why sometimes when we follow that path, that's why some government agencies don't function well. Because it shouldn't be based on seniority. It should be about the person who's willing to work, the person who's willing to learn, and the person who's willing to lead. And so I'm thankful that department head not just promoted me once, but twice. In the span of 3 years, I became a supervisor when others, quote unquote, deserved it because they were there longer. No.
Yeah.
And so again, I go back to your community, those support system, right? And then it goes into my political space. I'm the youngest ever elected to the Board of Education, right? I currently serve as the youngest ever board chair of the Yolo County Board of Education. That's a lot of weight I carry, but it's also motivation to anyone else. And it, I always feel like I'm the speaker and want to be the speaker representative of immigrants or people of color, but it's for anyone who's a young person who wants to venture out and go shoot for the stars. Go for it. Because the more you can challenge, the more someone will get the opportunity. And if you didn't get it, the next person probably will because you challenged it.
Yeah. I think that's another part of being for Jen, the importance of not only keeping connected where we come from, but also that what we're doing matters for people that we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's also like a weight, because that may mean that you are not the person benefiting from this effort, from this suffering, from this pain. And that can be discouraging and that can be hurtful in so many ways, or even make you believe that you're not good enough, you're not there yet. And so balancing out so much ourselves, our families, but also the people that we're trying to pull with us, because you're right. People do benefit sometimes from the challenge, the challenges that we go through. And I think that even is why I think it's important to tell the stories, because we are interconnected. Whether we know each other or not, everything that we do matters to other people that you may never even realize. And I think that's important, something important to ground ourselves and to remind ourselves.
And I've said it in a couple of my speeches, I thank those before me who opened the doors, right? And if we continue that pattern, we continue to open the doors for others. Someone before me challenged folks to get a young person, a Latino, whatever the case is, to give them the opportunity. So that's a tradition we should follow, not the other one we talked about.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of talking about breaking generational patterns, right? What we're talking about is that there are some patterns. There's a lot of gifts and beautiful things that come from our comunidad. And then there's some things that we have to be very conscious about leaving behind, right? And so breaking patterns, starting new cycles, figuring out what are the things that worked for my family but don't work for me, that work for my friend but don't work for me. That's also part of figuring it out ourselves. What are the patterns? What are the cycles that I want to keep repeating because they benefited me or because I've seen others benefit, but also the patterns that don't serve me anymore? I may need to leave them behind. Thank you so much. You served me, but I'm not in survival mode anymore. So I can't be functioning like I'm surviving anymore, right? But that breaking of generational cycles, I know that that's something also that has been important for you as you develop not only in your career, but also personally as a man.
Yeah.
También, right? Like that's the other part.
I'll talk about two kind of generational patterns that I think are really important, specifically in my life and as a man, maybe, or just as again, I don't want to say this all about immigrant, but I'm a proud immigrant, folks. I'm a proud immigrant, and I want all of us, exactly. I want all of us who are to embrace it. Yeah. But it's the forgiving of your parents. That's hard. That is really hard. And we have to remember that they gave us what they knew. And I didn't realize that younger, right? I had this like rencor of like, why didn't I go this? Why didn't I have this opportunity? Well, first and foremost, venimos sin nada. Secondly, my parents came to a culture they never knew. They left their family to try to give me a new chance in life. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that when we're going through this growth of life, that we don't give our parents the grace they deserve. And I learned this later in life, that I'm like, no, you know what? No hay rencor. Hay un gracias. Un gracias porque por ustedes estoy aquí, por ustedes, and you serve as my motivation to keep going, to keep striving, to keep breaking those barriers and the glass ceilings, right? So, familia, those who have rencor, really think about what you are holding that grudge on, and can it be forgiven because of what they knew and what they could offer. I think breaking that and starting a new cycle will not only build your relationship with your family, but then not take that back to your children when you have them. To say no tengo una relación, o no va, my baby's not going to meet my grandparents or not going to be around them as much because there's issues there. The second part is generational wealth. Wealth. Me, alongside others, co-founded the Association of Latino Professionals for America, Greater Sacramento. It's a national organization, has been in existence for over 50 years. But nunca había un chapter here where like, we need to bring it. And there's a purpose for it, right? And what we've been focusing on recently is this wealth series to tell our comunidad the importance of wealth, how to keep your wealth, and how to manage it. Because a lot of us fail in that space because we don't have that knowledge. And this is where we suffer. Okay, we can't. So the other generational pattern that I mentioned, that's a downfall. But if we get this one into a good space, then we continue to give our children or grandchildren the opportunities that, like we mentioned earlier, white people have.
Well, and I think you're tapping into the both, right? That we can recognize the things that we need to leave behind. Some families can be harmful. Sometimes we are very hurt by our families. And I think in our culture, sometimes it's not allowed to also protect ourselves and set some boundaries, right?
Yes.
And with that, I think that is different than the rencor in the way that like sometimes holding on to that, though not being able to understand the context of where our families came from. I can say, I love you. I see what you did, but I also am going to set some boundaries that protect me and that serve me, because the way that we went about it, the way that you went about it, was not it. It hurt me, right? We are allowed to figure it out and negotiate. But if we just go through the rencor, then we also rob ourselves from the opportunity of making a decision about how I'm going to show up for this family that, despite doing their best, maybe hurt me, or maybe left me with some gaps, and now I'm having to like echarle ganas doble porque no me lo enseñaron, right? But it is going directly to the anger, going directly to the rencor, it doesn't allow us to examine and to see everyone with the compassion that, at least in my belief, my hope is that everybody is trying to just be a good person, not to hurt others intentionally. But that sometimes, we're going to have to cycle break in the sense of being very clear about what doesn't get to come along, right? Like that's what it makes me think about that part. And then the second part is about a good life when we're surviving, right? And wealth being connected, that it's not like you are only well when you have money.
Correct.
But the reality is that capitalism is real. And if you're having to worry about putting food on your table, if you don't have enough resources to put a roof over your head, it's going to be really hard to dive into pleasure, into joy, into happiness, into exploration. And so when you're talking about wealth building, I like to talk about not only financial wealth, but also emotional wealth, right? Like the capacity of more, of building reservoirs so that we can use it in the future, but also benefit from it now. At least that's what comes up for me.
No, I love that. And really good point on both, right? The first part that you mentioned, you're right on target. Tenemos unas familias que nunca nos van a entender. And that's okay, like you said, let's put those barriers. Or sorry, not the boundaries. Let's put those boundaries, protections for ourselves. And the other portion is you're right on target. Wealth is not just about money. There's so many more things that encompass wealth. But our gente need it.
Yeah, no, we need it. Capitalism is real. Esta economía. The other day I went out with my friend and I was like, it only costs under $20 to have dinner. How strange, right? Because the reality is that we do need to know how to use our money as a resource beyond pagar los biles
Sí.
y comer por hoy, right? When, as first gens, we also have to learn a bunch of things about how to be preparing for the future, because as our immigrant families, many times they couldn't picture the future.
Yeah.
They didn't have the opportunity to think about what comes next, porque todo es check to check, moment by moment, survival, right? And so part of this opportunity that we've gotten to get to build our careers, thanks to the sacrifices from before, painfully because of the mistakes that were made before, like a combination of all the things, right? But we are in a place where we now can start thinking about what kind of life do we want to have and what kind of resources do we need in order to have that life.
Yes, absolutely. Paying it forward. It's the paying it forward model.
And dreaming up, right? Because also that's the other part, I think, that when we are in survival mode, when we are just surviving through the day, it's hard to dream and it's hard to be curious, right? And so it makes me think about you being a little kid probably watching TV and being like, I want to know about the weather, right? But how?
Sí.
How do you do that, right? And so that curiosity sometimes for many people, it does get se duerme, it goes dormant, it hides, or is put down, and so we don't get to explore it. But now that we recognize there are some things that our families maybe didn't equip us for. There's a lot of things we had to figure it out on our own. Now I know that I need a community to learn together. That's what you're talking about, building a network, building resources, not only for your benefit, but also para la comunidad.
And showing up unapologetically. I've built more and I don't say real friendships. I've built more connections when being vulnerable. I went through a program called the Crecientes program. It's a leadership program here in Sacramento region, and it's Latino based. And it was so cool. I'm part of the inaugural cohort. It was so cool to be with professionals that some have really high positions, some are getting into leadership, but it was so cool to see that regardless of where you are, you can be an executive or starting your leadership role. We all went through the same thing.
Yeah.
We all trauma bonded. ¿Te acuerdas when you had to, translate at 5 years old and you didn't know the language? I did that too. You know what I mean? Like it felt so good to trauma bond because you forget that you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it encourages you to see that if somebody else made it out, then you can make it out too. Right. And so maybe that's also part of today's conversation, the message of like, listen, like life gets hard and maybe where you came from didn't prepare you for the life that you're having. And maybe you feel confused and maybe you feel lost, and you're not the only one. Find the people that can give you the shortcuts. Find the people that can give you the advice, pero al final hay cada quien, right? Like you do what you're going to do with that advice, but you are speaking on like the necesidad de tener comunidad. And have that community that can validate and say, and that sucks and keep going.
Yeah.
And that was horrible, but we gotta keep moving and find the motivation to get out of those places that didn't serve us and that maybe hurt us or that didn't allow us to thrive, right? Like you making that decision that probably is very hard, but also continuing to be in an environment that is not healthy for you is not going to get you to the next place where you're going, right? And so sometimes we're going to have to do hard things and let go of what we thought we wanted or what we thought it should look like, and trust ourselves that when that espinita, when that like intuition is saying this is not it, okay, then what is it? Who can I go talk to? Who can I ask? Where can I get some role modeling? Because maybe it's not within your home that you can find that.
And you know what I have to mention? I think many of us forget who our friends are or how they're involved, right? We had a conversation previous to this and you offered support and I'm like, Adri, why didn't I reach out to you? Right? And I think that's something really important too, right? Just anyone in general. Remember who your community is.
Yeah.
And remember that if they're part of your life, it's because they want to support you. So reach out. And, como te dije, I was going through some really hard times and I got out of those hard times. And we have a family group and I sent it to my cousins, sisters, and others that are part of the group. And I said, this is what I've been going through. But this is what I learned from the experience. 1, know your worth. 2, don't let people gaslight you to make you believe you're something that you're not. 3, most importantly, and this is what I told them, do not forget to ask for help, any type of help and any all help. Ask for help. And remember to reach out to your community because they will uplift you. Just, our life is hard. Ahorita está a little harder.
Yeah.
Pero there's a lot of good people that surround you. Don't forget that.
Yeah. I think that is such a, sometimes we see each other. Like, I think about the times when we were in college and we like bump into each other. We forget like, oh no, we actually are like this grown professionals who know a lot of stuff, right? Because sometimes it can be hard to see your friends as they transition, or, I've seen those things on TikTok. It is like, I could poner un PowerPoint presentation to tell you about what you do for work, because we just hang out with you. I don't know what you're doing for a living, right? And so going back in whatever way, maybe this is a PowerPoint presentation, slide deck of like, what do you do for work? But also staying in tune with those community as they grow, because they may have the resource that you're looking for, right? Like they may be the shortcut, the little tip. Oh, let me give you 2-3 tips to expedite this. But I think it goes back to that first gen como orgullo, that pride, like I figured out on my own. Let it go. Let it go.
Let it go and ask. And also, I think it's important to share. I think every single one of us have navigated a space we didn't want to. I've navigated the medical space through injury, right? That if anyone has gone through that, call me. I know how to get you the services, and I know what to ask now. And like we talked about it earlier, it's like sometimes we don't know what we don't know because we don't know the next step.
Yeah.
And so if we've all created already the navigating path because no one else did for us, let's share that.
Yeah. Share the wealth. Tell people what you do. So if your friends don't know what you do, tell them, because then maybe somebody else, maybe not you directly, but somebody else. I love, for me, thinking about, if I don't know something, I bet I know someone who does. Yes. And that's also the part of the building the community, that interconnectedness, that sometimes you're not going to be benefiting directly, but you can always kind of be of service, connecting people. Like that's one of my favorite things to do, is like connect others and be like, you two would be great friends, but also this person can help you out, right? And so el poder de la comunidad. Where are you going next? How are you planning on what happens next? What is the next chapter looking like for you with all these lessons? But still considering that, like, you reminded me how old you are. And I'm like, damn, Armando, you're always so young. Like, I forget that, like you said, you are, the way that you carry yourself sometimes makes us forget, but you have a whole lot of life ahead of you. So where are you going next?
I'm at a time in my life where I'm pivoting. I'm scared. It's a scary thought process, but you know what? I'm proud of myself more than anything. I'm proud that I said no to the space where I was at, and then I'm moving forward. I have a couple of options, porque after 16 years in the career that I was in, right now I said goodbye. But I'm proud of what I left a legacy, right? I not only in my career in election administration, not only did I leave an impact locally, it was statewide and nationally. And it's because of my story, right? I'm an immigrant turned citizen who was in the world of election administration. That's not common.
Yeah.
Because when I came into this space, I was still not a legal citizen. And therefore, the conversations of elections never took place in my home. Because I wasn't voting in Mexico. I wasn't voting in the United States. But I get a job at the Secretary of State's office. And that's where my career pivoted. I was supposed to get into law enforcement, and no, life took me elsewhere. And so after 16 years, I am saying goodbye. And I say, not goodbye, pardon. I keep telling everyone I'm saying see you soon, because there's a lot of options for me. And right now in my life's road, there's a fork. And that's when
exciting and scary. It's exciting and scary.
It's very scary because do I continue in that route of election administration? Do I go further in politics in some sort of way? Or do I go into this other space that I haven't been before? They're all going to bring their challenges.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a learner. I want to continue to grow. It's a hard question to answer, pero sé que I'm going to let go and let God. Y lo digo porque I just recently went through something where I was like, I don't understand why this happened. I was so close. Lo tenía en la mano y me lo quitaron right in front of me. And so I was upset. It was a really hard time. And then there's things falling into place right now where I was like, okay, I see it. I see it. And okay, como dicen el dicho, let go and let God. I need to just let go and let God.
Yeah. I like to think about... rejection is hard. Not getting what we want is hard. Not getting the fruit of the labor that we put in is hard. And I like to think that every rejection is a redirection, right? If this is not for me, it sucks. I'm still, as a therapist, I'll be like, let's validate the feelings. You're going to be pissed. You're going to be sad. All of that. And the proof in the pudding is you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Because you got here from being this immigrant in Colusa, sabiendo que ibas a regresar al farm, to be like now in politics. I mean, like, proof in the pudding, like, you're going to be fine, right? And we forget sometimes.
Yes, we do.
Que nos tenemos que confiar. Que tenemos que confiar that the data of our life is saying, if you made it to here, you're going to make it more. But vamos a llorar poquito, we're going to be a little angry, we're going to be a little sad, we're going to be, of course, disappointed, right? But that doesn't mean that you stop. That doesn't mean that you stall. It just says, sometimes you just kind of got to cruise.
Yeah.
You necessarily don't know where you're going.
No.
Okay.
Data tells a story. Como tú dices,
tells a story. In our own life, data tells a story.
I also think, imposter syndrome. That's a whole nother episode.
That's a whole nother episode.
But that has a play into why sometimes our mental state goes into where it is. Hice todo esto, now I'm not there. See, I shouldn't. It just, I went into a conference in March. And we had a comedian, and it was a comedian that talked about the importance of mental health. It was an interesting quasi space because he was trying to be funny, but it went deep. And one of the quotes was something along the lines of, the hardest thing said about you is not by people, it's by your mind. Because we create these stories. Que ni están allí, que ni nada.
Yeah. I mean, like, I always ask, like, when I'm doing work with people or even my friends and they bring up imposter syndrome, and like, first of all, that voice is a liar. So when that's said, how did that voice get created, right? Because we're not born doubting ourselves. In fact, if you see little kids, you see confidence, you see grit, you see try it again, you see fall down and get back up, right? We are born with that belief in ourselves. We needed to live to survive, to believe that si te caes, te levantas and you do it again, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't learn to walk, ride a bike, like all the things that if you think about that you've already had to do that you didn't know how. Entonces, a veces, that being new at something or being an experience, we confuse it with being bad at something.
Oh, yes. That's a good point.
Being an experience and not knowing is not the same as being bad. But I think a lot of us mix it together, right? And so that's part one, sometimes where imposter syndrome comes from. Second, are you an imposter or are you just sitting in a space that genuinely is not designed for you?
Yeah.
A space that you were never meant to be in. So if you feel awkward, you feel off, you feel like you don't belong, actually you don't. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there. It's just that space wasn't created for you. And that's what's contributing to that voice, right? But you're right. That voice, sometimes we believe it so much, we don't question it. We're so hard with ourselves that we create barriers for ourselves. And I think it's important to examine for any of you that maybe are relating to this idea of like, I don't feel good enough. I feel like I'm an imposter. I feel like I shouldn't be here. I want you to ask yourself, how did that voice get created? Because you learn to do all these things as a little kid with the belief that I could and that nothing could stop me. But somewhere along the way that changed. And I want you to ask yourself, like, how did that voice get created for me? Because that voice may have not been created by people, by circumstances that were looking out for my light in my brightest moment, right? But rather by the crap pulling it down. And so it is important that we question that idea of imposter syndrome, because most of us, we're not imposters. If anything, as immigrants, we are least amount of imposters possible because we've had to work hard to get where we're at. Every moment that we've accomplished is such a miracle because it has taken a lot of things to get us to where we're at.
We feel like we have to prove ourselves when we don't.
And so how can we use that as data, right? That information that imposter is saying, no, but you're not good enough. No, but you can. No, you can't. But what does your life really tell you about you? Get to know yourself like that. I think it's really important that we get to know ourselves for the truths and for also the areas of growth that we need to have, right? En los últimos años, I've had this like little ritual that I've been doing is like, how did I kick the last year's ass? So I have
that's
I have
cool.
a board
I like that.
in my office at home, and I have a how did I kick 2024's ass, and then I split it in half: personal, professional. It's such a cathartic moment. I've never said this out loud. Sometimes I'm going so fast that I forget of all the things that I do. But when that imposter syndrome comes, I want to remember I've done things. The data proves, right, that I can accomplish things, that I can work hard, that I can do it again, and that I've survived moments that I thought were going to break me.
Yeah.
And it's so important to question that.
I never even thought of that or heard of that. I love that.
Yeah.
Especially visually. We need to see it sometimes because we forget how badasses, chingones we are.
So, tarea for tonight or for the next few days, how did you kiss the first half of 2025?
Yeah.
Right now, as this episode releases, we're gonna be like right in the second half, starting the second half of the year. So, what have you done so far that you're proud of? I don't think we spend enough time with our accolades, to ourselves.
I am proud. Well, first and foremost, I go back to I'm proud of evaluating my life and saying enough is enough. More than anything. But two, I received 2 big recognitions and awards this year. Huge. I mean, to be awarded a top 20 Latino changemaker in the region is absolutely incredible. I just my jaw dropped to the ground when I got the email. I thought it was for, I got an email that said Sacramento Bee, the interview request. And they said, it's a public record act request for something that they need. Let me read it, send it over with data, and that way they can respond accordingly. And I got the email and I read it and I was like, wait, what? I need to read this again. Like, this is huge. And then I just recently received another one where it was the a Rising Star Award. Mm-hmm. And I thought the call was a prank because I got it's because I got a voicemail. And the voice was kind of como que se iba y se venía. And then you got an award. It's this organization, and I was like, fishy. So then I got So then I got a hold of them, and they were talking amazing about what I've done and how they want to honor me. That was huge to me.
Échate
but I do it because I'm so proud to represent mi familia. I'm so proud to represent immigrantes. I'm to represent Mexico. Like you said, who are you, right? What's your
story?
Your story. Mm-hmm. It's representing young people. It's representing people of color. When I get these awards, all of that is on my shoulders. And I'm doing this and I'm receiving this in honor of everyone. And that's just genuinely me. I don't have to fake it to make it. This is what you see is what you get with Armando. If you know me. And that's why I have such a huge support system. Los que no saben, I think I've invited you in the past, no me acuerdo. My birthday parties are a small 300 birthday party.
I've seen that.
And
we share birthday
I know, that's why.
But one of these days, voy a pasar mi birthday contigo. Like,
we can do it together. Pero me acuerdo una vez, just side note, little side story here. El señor que trajo las mesas y las sillas. Oh, ¿te vas a casar, mijo? No. Entonces, ¿qué está pasando aquí? Le dije, it's just a small birthday party. A small birthday party?
300 people.
but I say that because, again, I really am genuine about carrying my people with me and being a true representation. And so all of that, I'm proud of where I've come from. It's been a really tough 6 months, believe it or not. Yeah. Pero voy a salir adelante. Well, le voy a echar ganas, and these next 6 months are going to be amazing.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Thank you.
You deserve it. Because tampoco la vida puede ser just grind, Sometimes we got to take that hard stop and be like, okay, regroup. What are we doing, right? I know that I had to do that through COVID. I had the opportunity of deciding, do I keep going up in the public service, place that I was in, where I was sort of like next in line to kind of move up, and it just no longer aligned with what I wanted to do, right? And it was strange to make that decision because I thought that was it. That was the goal. The goal was to be a director of a director of a director, and then I was like, you know what? This is no longer in alignment. And so sometimes we do need the pit stop to just ask ourselves, is this still what I want? Based on like what I know about myself and what I enjoy and like because work can be pleasurable. Work can be a place where we find a lot of fulfillment too. And so I'm excited for you for this next 6 months and to see where the three road, which of the roads will you take? Ahí te voy a preguntar a final de año.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah. But listen, as we kind of wrap up with our conversation, we can keep going. But as we wrap up, for the sake of our listeners, me gusta preguntar, I love asking, what do you think young Armando, at whatever age, Mandito, ahí en Colusa, at whatever age, would be so proud, amazed, in disbelief of seeing you and the life that you've lived so far?
That's a deep question. Going back to Dilulu be determined. Not fun fact, but I'll speak a nickname that no one really knows other than my close family. Nin, little Nin, because it's Armandin, but Nin would be incredibly proud of who his adult self is. He would have never, he imagined it, never thought he would be here, and just surpassed the imaginable. I mean, Neen wanted to always, I've always been a person of care of others. I've always put others before me. So Neen always knew he was going to be of support of people. But man, Neen is so proud of this person. Neen is proud of este tío. ¿Cómo llegó? Y cómo llegó genuinely, right? Like, the way I got here was not easy. The road was not easy. I did not come from any privilege or access. Yeah. I built my road with the support of La Comunidad. But the fact that I've been able to be authentically and unapologetically myself to get where I'm at is, I think, something that he's going to be most proud of, because he didn't have to change who he was to be where he is.
I love that. I love that. What is your tío legacy?
My tío legacy.
Your tío legacy, right? What are you wanting for others to remember their tío Mando for?
Tío Mando is a giving person. Tío Mando is going to take your hand and take you to where you want to go. Tío Mando's legacy is, call me because I'm here to support you. I'm going to go into a quick little story. You brought something up. COVID happened. I almost passed from it the first time. I actually caught COVID on November 3rd, election day, because I worked in election administration, by someone spitting in my face. I was taken into the hospital through an ambulance because I could no longer breathe by myself. In the ambulance, I had a fever seizure because it was so high. In the hospital, no me podían calmar el fever. And in COVID times, you don't have support. You're in this room, cold room, by yourself. And I said, if they intubate me because I have asthma, aquí se acabó el corrido de Armando. And what was his legacy? What was, in this case, what was Tío Armando's legacy? And I said, I don't think I have one. And if I have a chance of continuing my life, then I want to have one. And so that took place. Then I did 2 leadership programs at the same time. And that's where I found my voice. I want to be the voice in support of imigrantes, people of color, and all these other spaces that I represent, because sometimes they feel like they don't have a seat at the table. Let me be your voice for you. And then I took it to another level. In 2021, I believe, I had a birthday party, and I've always done my birthday. It's not in honor of me. You will see messages of my invites. It's, thank you for being in my life and helping me get to where I am today. This party's about you. Come celebrate together. Ese año, I did a fundraiser to start a scholarship fund for immigrants or children of immigrants who want to pursue any type of education, called the Adelante con Orgullo Scholarship. And so now Tío Armando has a legacy, because he's opening spaces for others like him, who came where he came from or who look like him.
I love that. You're going to have to give me the info so we can put it in the show notes. And so if you want to get involved and support this legacy, because I'm down. Like, I am so proud of you. I have had de lejitos, pero de cerca a veces, the privilege is watch you grow up. And I've had the opportunity to see so many amazing people come from, you know, the parties that we used to go to. And we're like this dope ass adults. Like,
dang.
How cool we turn out to be, how kind and good people, right? And so I am so thankful for coming on onto the podcast and sharing your story, because I think that it is a relatable one. We're not alone in the struggles that you're naming. And when we come together and we do it together, viene para más.
Yes.
We benefit, but also everybody that we're in community benefits. And I'm just so thankful to be part of your community también, porque te admiro mucho, and I can't wait to see where you're going.
And thank you. Being the first deal ever is an honor. You know how much love and respect I have for you. We came close, not just because of our birthdays, but we do have shared goals, right? And missions and visions of who we are and how we want to support the community. So thank you. This has been amazing. I was nervous, as you know, because I want to make sure that it's fruitful and that it does reach the audience that we want it to reach, to motivate, to say, hey, I'm relatable and let's make this happen. And so thank you. It's an honor. I'm proud and honored to be part of your community. You know that we will go far together. It takes a village.
It takes a village, and we're in it together.
Yes.
So muchas gracias a todos. So another episode with an amazing guest, Entre Tías y Amiguis. Until next time.
Adios.
Adios. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your tías and amiguis. Your support helps us reach more people and continue these important conversations. And don't forget to follow us on social media and stay connected. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself, embrace your journey, and keep living life with heart, vision, and creativity.